Hey, I am here with Mike. Now, Mike usually streams old video games on Twitch.
We streamed Breath of the Wild a long time ago on my channel. Do you remember that? I made you taste a Switch cartridge.
I do remember that, yeah. But for this one occasion, Mike is going to join me for a talk about Disney's Haunted Mansion. But let me just explain how this all came together, because as you probably know, I'm about to do Monster Madness, so I'm in the setup and everything. It's coming out this October, as usual. The topic this year is going to be Halloween themes, like candy, decorations, haunted attractions. And I was talking to Mike about haunted attractions, and the Haunted Mansion kind of stands out from other haunted attractions because it's in a theme park. It's a fixed.
It's a permanent fixture, yeah.
And it had a huge production, so it was like kind of like a more advanced haunted house than what you'd usually do on like a hayride or something. So consider this video like a pre-game to Monster Madness. So basically, we decided just to do a one-off video about Haunted Mansion, and then you'll see me again for Monster Madness this October.
I've always been kind of obsessed with Disney stuff, and one thing I want to point out, though, is I know what the comments will be on this video already, is that people are like, oh, Disney sucks now, and all that, and just to be clear, it's funny when you're an adult and then you talk about that you like Disney because they're like, oh, Disney's for kids and like all that. I like Disney from about the 1930s to through the 90s. It starts to drop off, I think, in the 2000s, and I don't like Disney very much anymore. So when I say I like Disney stuff, I like the old Disney stuff, and the Haunted Mansion is an old Disney thing.
Yeah. And what you mean is like we like you know like the Ichabod cartoon and Sword in the Stone and like the original Cinderella and like all that type of stuff.
There's also the more obscure Disney films, like stuff like Saludos Amigos, which is where Walt Disney gave his animators a bunch of cameras and he's like, go on vacation, boys, and they all went down to South America and they shot footage of beaches and stuff and brought the footage back to Burbank, and then they animated Donald Duck into the scenes. I know James loves the Goofy cartoons, right? That's your favorite, right?
Oh, of the Disney ones, probably. Yeah, I love Goofy.
I love that. I love the old Disney comic books, the Carl Barks, Donald Duck comics, the Floyd Gottfredson Mickey Mouse comics. I like all of it, but the old stuff, I don't really care that much for the new stuff. I feel like after the 90s, it really started to fall off. Not just the movies, but the theme park and just Disney in general. They started buying like Marvel, and now it's like Walt Disney's The Simpsons and Walt Disney's Spider-Man and Walt Disney's Star Wars, which all that's just weird to me, and I don't agree with any of that. I like Disney when they make their own stuff with their own IPs. Hey, about that Ichabod cartoon, did you ever watch the whole thing, the entire movie? Mr. Toad's Wild Ride is like based on the rest of that movie.
Yeah, isn't it the original story was like The Wind in the Willows or something?
Yes, that's the name of it. Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which is also kind of a scary ride because at the end of that ride, you basically go to hell. You're like on a crazy car ride. I don't know if he gets in a car accident and dies and goes to hell. Like, I don't know exactly what the plot is, but you end up in hell and there's like all little devils all over the place. And then the last thing you see is this big dragon that comes out. The Haunted Mansion isn't the only Disney thing that's spooky. There's a lot of spooky Disney things. They did that cartoon, The Lonesome Ghosts, and there's a lot of like spooky themed Disney things out there. There's the Trick or Treat cartoon and comic book as well, which was
that'll come up a little later.
Yeah, the comic book was drawn by Carl Barks. I actually have a lithograph in the other room of it, and then they made an animated cartoon of it, so people probably know all about that, where the Huey, Dewey, and Louie, they go out trick-or-treating, and then Donald gets involved and all that. So that's another good one too.
Yeah, because we're going to talk a little bit about trick-or-treating and stuff as this goes on, and that cartoon like helped make trick-or-treating popular, actually.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, like it wasn't like the one thing that did, but it was like a big, step in making trick-or-treating more like mainstream. Yeah, so the Haunted Mansion ride, basically, well, there was originally the one in LA, right, or Anaheim, and that was in like what, early 60s?
Yeah, 1969 was the original ride in California.
Oh, you know what I was thinking was, it was like, I guess it was originally just a facade, right? and then they built the ride inside of it eventually.
I believe it was a plan from the beginning to make it into the Haunted Mansion. It might have taken them a while to put the building together, so in that way it could have been a facade for a while people were in the park. They probably saw it being built, but I mean, I think it was always a plan for it to be the Haunted Mansion.
And then eventually there was the one in Orlando.
2 years later, 1971, Walt Disney World opened, and it opened with the Haunted Mansion as being part of it. Now, the Haunted Mansion in Anaheim in California is a New Orleans themed one, so the buildings don't look the same, where the Haunted Mansion in Orlando in Florida is a Gothic, like colonial American style building. So they look different, and the rides are a little bit different, but they're overall pretty similar, but there are some differences to them. The Haunted Mansion was an original ride. Like, they were just like, let's do a haunted house and have ghosts and gravestones and things like that, and let's just make a spooky ride for the theme park. Disney doesn't really do that anymore. Everything now has to be based on an IP. Like, if they're going to make a ride now, you know that it's going to be based on like Frozen, or it's going to be based on whatever like their new movies are, where back in the 60s and 50s and stuff, they used to just make rides that were totally original to the park. And one of the things I wanted to ask you, James, is what do you think about the fact that now they'll only make stuff that it's like it has to be tied to a movie or TV show? Do you feel like something is lost at all by them not just creating a new ride for the park like they used to do?
Yeah, I guess I do miss having a ride where it's just a ride, but either way, as long as it's a good ride, I guess. Do you remember the first time seeing the Haunted Mansion, like as a kid? Or
so I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New Jersey. So going to Disney usually meant going to Disney World, which meant usually a plane flight, which is different than how it is in California. With California, it's more like people in town can just drive there. It's more like in New Jersey, we have Great Adventure, like Six Flags, and it's just like you just drive in for the day. That's how Disneyland is in California. You just sort of drive in. It's not as big a deal. But going to Disney World is more of a destination thing, where it's like you get on a plane, you fly down there, you stay for however long, a couple days, a week, and when you're there, it's just Disney. It's a big deal, because it's like you're staying in the hotel and you paid a lot of money, and you got to get your money's worth out of it, because it's like you got to do it while you're there. Where Disneyland, if you live in Anaheim, you just drive in, you can go for a couple hours. What was your question?
Yeah, like Orlando's more about like Orlando has all the resorts and everything, so it's a lot more like staying there, and completely being Disney theme all day long and everything.
Yeah, you're completely like separated from society, where Disneyland isn't quite like that. I went to Disney quite a bit growing up. Gradually things would change over the years. You go 1 year and then you go back, 2-3 years later, and you'd be like, oh, what happened to that ride? That ride is gone. What happened in the Mr. Toad ride? What happened to the rides in Epcot? What happened to Maelstrom? What happened to...
Or they're gone, or like it's like Alien Encounter, how it's not there anymore.
Well, that one, they just don't have anything. Well, that ride was several different things. I think it was Mission to Mars, and then it was the Alien Encounter, and then it was a Stitch thing, and now it's just nothing. And out in California, they don't have the People Mover anymore. The track ride is just like sitting there, and it's really a shame, because they should just fix it up. And they spend money on so much stupid stuff. They're like, oh, let's make some crappy new Snow White movie, or some crappy new Aladdin movie, or let's buy Star Wars, and they make all these like bad decisions. Their first priority should be like, let's go fix the People Mover. Let's fix all these rides. That spend your money like on the Disney stuff, and after all that shit's fixed, if you want to go buy a Spider-Man, fine, but fix your own stuff first. And they don't do that. They leave their old rides and stuff to rot. The reason that happens a lot is because a lot of these CEOs and stuff, they didn't grow up with Disney. They grew up as Batman fans and Superman fans and Spider-Man fans, and so a lot of these people that are in control making decisions, they're like, oh, why don't we have Spider-Man? What's this goofy, like, they don't get it. Do you have a more specific memory of your first time going there? And
yeah, so It was definitely an expensive trip, so it wasn't something that you could do very often. It was kind of like a, like you said, it was like a destination kind of trip. So I think the first time I went, I must have been like, I think I was probably like 15, maybe, but it's hard to remember now. But the thing that I remember though is before that, I actually saw some video of it from my uncle, because my uncle would always have this video camera he would take around, and so my uncle and aunt went to Disney World for a little trip. And I remember when they came back, he had all this video to show. And on the video, he had like the Indiana Jones stunt show and stuff like that. And of course, this is crappy VHS quality video where it would like, he'd be zooming in and it would shake a lot and it would go in and out of focus. Like we were all just sitting around like during some like family event, just watching it, and like,
see, that's so awesome. It was probably a big deal then to sit there and do that and be like, oh, we can see Disney World on the TV, because it's so different now, because you could go on YouTube and just look up a ride through of anything you want. But back then it was like, oh my God, wait, this guy's got footage of Disney World. That's crazy. So I can imagine how exciting that was.
But I remember seeing that video of the Haunted Mansion when, now this is obviously way before YouTube, and now you could look up any POV video of a ride and spoil it, quite frankly, just absolutely spoil it. And even some videos, they even have the lights on, and it's like, oh, come on, like,
It doesn't matter anyway, because things are so different. When we used to go, we'd get on the ride and we'd be looking at the ride. Now when you go, you get on the ride and you look to the left and you look to the right and you're on the little cart. Like everybody's on their phone or on a tablet and they're like playing games on the phone. You got like Ariel or whatever in front of you and they're just like staring at their phones, and it happens all the time. And it's just like, why did you even go? You're spending all this money. Why did you even go if you're going to be looking at like some tower defense game on your phone or something?
Like, are people on like roller coasters, like doing loops and they're on their phone?
The kids are playing Roblox on their phone and they're not even looking at the ride. It's always like the dad that doesn't care. They even sell t-shirts a lot of times that'll be like, I paid for this trip and that kind of stuff. So the dad always has to be like, I'm too good for this. I'm too macho to pay attention to the Haunted Mansion. I'm gonna just like not pay attention.
When I went on the Mario Kart ride in Universal like a couple years ago, and I had my children with me, and I remember them just being so impatient, especially the littlest one. They have no patience. So I'm like looking at my phone. I'm looking at a walkthrough of the Mario Kart ride on my phone just to see how much longer the line is going to be, just to see like, should we stay in this or not?
I went to it later when it was not quite as busy, and actually I went not long ago, and the guy, there's a restaurant there, Toad's Cafe. And when I went up to Toad's Cafe, I was like, how long will it be? Because there was a line. I was like, how long would it be for 4 people? I was with some other people. And the guy's like, I know you. And I'm like, oh, yeah? And he's like, and then he turns to Aaron and he's like, he points to her and he goes, you beat Castlevania 3. And then he looks back at me and I'm like, do you want me to tell you who I am? And he's like, no. I want to guess. And I'm like, okay, you can guess. And he's like, Mike Matei. And I'm like, yep, that's me. And he's like, come right this way. And he let us cut all the people. So the one place I got an advantage in life is, of course, it would be Nintendo Land. So let's get back to the Haunted Mansion here.
Yeah. So anyway, that video back when so basically it's way before YouTube, and seeing a video of this ride, like my brain couldn't even comprehend like the effects that I was seeing on the video. Cause like I said, this is shitty VHS quality footage. It doesn't look good. It's always going out of focus. But all those like hologram faces and everything, I'm like looking at it like, is that real? Is that like on like a screen, or like what is that? And all I had was the video and my uncle telling me about it. And it wasn't until I went on the ride myself and actually saw it in like, with your natural eyes, seeing it in like the dim lighting and everything, was when I really was just amazed, like just blown away by the special effects and all the lighting. It was just incredible. Like when I was on that ride, I just remember like just looking around and trying to like make sure that I looked at everything before it passed by. And you almost want to go through it slower so you could really like check out everything. And I think I ended up going on it like 3 times in a row back then.
It's definitely the kind of thing where it's like there's so much going on, you got to go on it multiple times to try to like retain everything. So when you begin, the first thing is the line outside. It's the graves with the phrases, and you're waiting in the line queue. Tombstones, and they'll have phrases like "Good old Fred," a great big rock fell on his head, or "Brother Dave, he chases a bear into a cave." And so on and so forth. There's all these sort of grim jokes that they put onto the gravestones. And I don't know if you remember the actor Jack Lemmon, but he kind of did the same thing from like Grumpy Old Men. I saw his grave not long ago, and his grave said Jack Lemmon in.
Wow, I didn't know that. So it's like a real epitaph joke.
Yeah, he did like a Haunted Mansion thing, but on his actual thing. He was really fun. I like Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau and all them. And then they bring you into the stretching room, which is where it's a circular room, it's an elevator, and they have you stand in the middle of the room, and the person working there usually says, "Take your wretched body away from the walls and step into the dead center of the room." They don't want you touching the walls because the walls are like moving. So they say that, but people who have been on the ride a lot will often, they know that the phrases are coming up. So what you don't want to do if you're going to the Haunted Mansion, don't be one of those people who take over the job of the employee, because you walk in and there's like 7 people in there and they're all like, "The dead center of the room, everybody get into the dead center of the room." And it's like, don't do that. You're kind of ruining it a little bit for other people. So just shut up. Just let the ride happen. The original portraits were done by Disney animators, like Mark Davis, I believe, did a lot of them. They were just paintings, and then they had them like enlarged and put in the room. There's a bunch of different ones. Like there's a woman on a tightrope above an alligator, but at first you only see the woman, and as it stretches, then you see the alligator with his open mouth. So there's all the all the different
like foreboding when they expand. I remember the effect working pretty well too. Like every time I've been on it, where it does feel like you're sinking or something. Which I think, like, actually, you might know the answer, but like I think each of the like Disneyland, Disney World does the effect in a different way, right?
Oh yeah, the stretching room in Disneyland is an actual elevator, and it lowers the people from the ground level to the lower level of the building. But the one in Disney World in Orlando, it doesn't. It's not an elevator. It's just stationary, and the effect is because of raising the ceiling. Yeah.
We should mention the voice, like that iconic voice, which I looked up. The original voice actor was Paul Frees. It's one of those things where you would imagine that the voice is Vincent Price, even though as far to my knowledge, it's never been Vincent Price. But I think it might be a little bit like one of those Mandela effects where you just imagine it to be Vincent Price's voice.
I mean, they should have got him. That would have been perfect for it. You go down a hallway and there's all these portraits going along the wall, and there's the Flying Dutchman, there's the Medusa, there's the like a werewolf lady, and there's Master Gracie. And as you're passing by it, the image sort of changes, and it's these sort of ghostly images where when you first see like the ship, it's just a ship, but then as you pass by it, it turns into a ghost ship with lightning. And just recently in that area as well, they added a cat, which has like a red eye, and that was an idea that they had back in the 60s when they were making the ride, but for whatever reason it wasn't implemented. But they recently put in the cat with the red glowy eye into that area as well, so you'll pass by that. So if you see the cat, don't think that was a new thing that they just made up. That was actually an old idea that they just brought into fruition, which I thought that was cool that they did that. See, there's a modern Disney thing that they did that was good. All right, so the next thing, you actually get on the ride. There is a track moving along the floor, and you actually got to get onto the ride pretty quickly before you can almost like trip over yourself trying to get onto the thing because it moves pretty fast. But you get on the ride, and the little carriages are called doom buggies. That's what they call them.
Oh, I never knew that. Doom buggies. Okay.
You get on them, and the thing closes down on you, and that ride system is called an Omnimover ride system, and it was invented by Bob Gurr. Worked on the Matterhorn, the People Mover, lots of rides. I want to explain just what that means. That's probably the main part of what the Haunted Mansion is this, and why they even made it in the first place. They invented this system. It's a different way to load people. It's a way to like eat people up, basically, to get congestion down in the park. Like the ride doesn't come in and stop, and then you get on it and go again. It just keeps moving. So when you go on like the Little Mermaid ride, any of those types of rides where it just it's continually moving and you gotta like hop on it quick, that's called the Omni Mover system, and they did that on purpose to like get things going like faster, and that's a Disney thing.
There's this one part where there's this really long hallway, and I think it might be mirrors, and there's like a floating candle at the end of this hallway, and on the other side there's like the coffin. And, it's like that coffin that's kind of like jiggling open. Yeah, and there's like a window behind it. And I just remember that part is so cool. And every time I go through, I'd always have to like decide like, oh, am I going to look more at the coffin or am I going to look more at the hallway?
Also in that area is a bunch of doors. And the doors have like knockers, but they're automatic. So it looks like there's a ghost knocking on the door. So the Disney World version has the upside down stairs, which I think are based on the famous painting Relativity by M.C. Escher. It's where you look up at the ceiling and it's all these staircases that are sort of going in different directions. That's specific to Orlando. Then the Omni Mover brings you into the ballroom, which is a long sort of horizontal room where you're looking at this long dinner table. It's making all these different projected effects to where you're essentially seeing ghosts right in front of your face.
Yeah, I gotta say, like that seemed like when I first saw that as a kid, I was just blown away. Like I'm looking at ghosts. Like they just look like they're floating in the room, and even though you're looking down over this balcony at this whole ballroom, but it's like, whoa, holy shit! It's like a whole party of ghosts, and
all these projections make all these cool ghost effects. Probably most notably are the dancing ghosts that are like spinning around, which were also used in the NES game, because Adventures in the Magic Kingdom has the whole Haunted Mansion part that you go into, which is really cool, and it's pretty well represented actually, unlike a lot of NES games where they don't, Back to the Future and things where they don't represent the thing well. The NES game really shows that Haunted Mansion, I think, pretty well for a game. One thing I heard is that the organ guy is actually the same as characters from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. I think they used like the same prop for that. The ballroom scene is one of the most iconic rooms in the whole place, I would say. Besides the ballroom dancer guys, there's also ghosts coming out of their paintings on the wall that are shooting at each other up in the top left. And then the ones down below at the table are drinking and blowing out candles on the cake. There's a lot of stuff going on. So the effect works because the rider is above looking down on the scene through an angled piece of glass. It creates this reflection of the hidden room below. And those dancing ghosts are animatronics, and they're just dimly lit with lights flickering on and off of them, making them appear ghostly.
yeah, and just to think like 1969 that would have existed, like that people could go in and see that. Like that's crazy.
The Disney company was so good about like inventing their own ways of coming up with effects. They did the multi-plane camera as well. They did animatronics and all kinds of stuff. Disney was always inventing things, and they had a whole company to do that. The company that they made to do that within Disney was called WED, and the Disney Imagineers worked for WED, and that's where Wedway People Mover comes from. And it was just all these talented people that they would get from all over the country, all over the world that would work there, and they were constantly inventing things.
There actually is a really good documentary series. I think it was Imagineering. I think that was the title. Do you remember that?
Yeah, there's all kinds of good Disney history stuff. There's one movie called Waking Sleeping Beauty, which is sort of about the 80s and 90s resurgence of their movies and stuff. And one that I really like, that I feel like everybody should watch. This is Frank and Ollie, but it's about the 9 old men that animated all these movies. Mark Davis and Ward Kimball, and I have a lot of love for all this Disney stuff. I mean, listen, you and I met because of my love of Disney. I went to art school because I liked, like Looney Tunes and Disney, largely Disney, because I liked the Carl Barks comic books and all this, but also the animations. And, so this is like very near and dear to my heart. So this is a great movie. Everybody should watch. If you like Disney, people should know a little bit about these guys. The next room you move into is with the crystal ball is in the center, and she's called Madame Leota. She was actually one of the Imagineers, and we were just talking about Wedway and the Imagineers and all that, and they used her likeness for that. So that's who that is. It's like based on a real person. Leota Toombs Thomas. And she also worked on Small World, Pirates of the Caribbean, Tiki Room, and then they used her image for her. And she's basically just like a sort of ghostly fortune teller person inside of the crystal ball, and you're moving around this room, and she's sort of enchanting spells and all this, and things are floating in the room, like there's musical instruments like drums and trumpets and things floating in the air. I saw this interview one time with Dan Aykroyd, and he was with his father, and this was a thing I saw on YouTube, and he was talking about how, he's talking about Ghostbusters and how he believes in ghosts and all that, and you know how Dan Aykroyd is. But he was talking about how when he was a kid, one of the things that made him believe in ghosts was that he was at like a seance, and he was like a little kid, and he remembers seeing a trumpet floating in the air. He was like, oh my God, I guess ghosts must be real, because they're doing like the seance thing, and there's a trumpet floating. And then his dad was there in the interview, and his dad goes, yep, that happened. Like so he had like a person like back him up as well. Like, okay, this was like a real thing. And then so I'm right in the Haunted Mansion. I'm going through that Madame Leota room, and I'm looking at all the floating like instruments in the sky. And then there's a trumpet floating in the sky, and I'm thinking to myself, did Dan Aykroyd actually just go on the Haunted Mansion, and his memory is like cloudy?
Well, also that happens. I think there is a floating trumpet in the Ed Wood movie, Night of the Ghouls.
All glorious knowledge of truth and righteousness.
Or maybe he was just watching Night of the Ghouls. So every time I go on the Haunted Mansion now, I look up at that trumpet and I think of Dan Aykroyd. I would love to hear his thoughts on the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah, he would just be like, oh, well, that's a Class 8 Ecto something or another.
There was the Hatbox Ghost. And this was a character and an effect that was gone for a really long time. They had it in 1969, and the effect wasn't really working well. So it's this ghost, and he has a hat box, and his head is supposed to disappear and go into the hat box, and then...
Wait, a box of hats, or like...
A box that you, like a woman would keep a hat in, that's all. And he's like holding it, and it's supposed to go from... into the box, and then it's supposed to go back to his face, like as if his face disappears.
Maybe it was just a little too outdated that nobody has a hat box anymore.
Well, yeah, back in the day, people wore hats more, I guess, but top hats,
with monocles
and things like that. I think it's supposed to be like for like a top hat, like a box you keep your top hat in, or something like that.
I was just thinking of like things that people don't wear anymore, like monocles and like
So for many, many years, that effect was gone. It was removed in the 60s, and they sort of somewhat recently in the last 5-10 years added it back with modern technology and computers and everything. They have it working perfectly now. That was always a thing for many years of people would say like, oh, did you know there used to be this cool effect back in the 60s that they had about the Hatbox Ghost? So people knew about it. So when they actually brought it back, it was kind of a big deal. So now you're at the top of the house, you're in the attic, and what happens then is the doom buggy turns and goes like this, and then it like brings you back, and now you're like kind of on your back. And I like that part of the ride a lot because I'm old and walking around the park all day, my back's hurting. So yeah, so it feels so good on my back, and I'm just like, I can't wait to get on the Haunted Mansion and be on the part where it makes my back feel good. So I'm like going. So you're going now. You're traveling downwards now, like on your back. As you're coming down, you see all these creepy trees that look like something out of the Wizard of Oz, and there's crows with like red eyes and things like that as you're traveling down.
So now we're getting into the cemetery. Yeah, this is the real good shit. The cemetery was probably my favorite part since being a kid. I love how there's such a big combination of effects. There's like those ghostly sort of projections where they sort of come up. Then there's like those hologram faces on like the or those like projected faces on those like statues.
And one of those projected faces, the voice is actually Tony the Tiger.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's Tony the Tiger's voice.
Yeah. Oh, then there's like the ones that pop up. There's like these ones that just kind of pop up out of the ground, and they're like an animatronic.
In the background, there's bicycles that are going around in a circle, and there's like ghosts on the bicycles.
I like the guy with the lantern. Like I think he's got like a dog with him or something.
Every single character has their own unique look and style and story to them. So like you're looking at one area and you're seeing these characters that are almost look like Greek or something, and there's one person that has like a harp. I've gotten stopped on the ride before where I'm like going through the ride and the ride stops because somebody maybe is like trying to get on the ride, so they have to stop the ride for a second. I'm always hoping that I'll get stuck in that room.
Oh.
So that I can get a chance to actually like look around, but I never get stuck there.
That's probably the one ride I wouldn't mind getting stopped on, just so you could like check it out more.
I think I got stopped where you were talking about earlier, that like hallway with the candle.
Oh, that's cool though too.
I like that the characters are all individually designed and they all have their own story to them, and they like you can tell like. These are all people that lived a life, and they're all interesting to look at. You know, they all have character to them.
Yeah, like even the guy with the lantern, who's supposed to be like a real he's like probably one of the only live human characters in the ride that I can think of where he's not a ghost. But when you look at him, he doesn't look like a real person. He looks like a stylized Disney like drawing come to life, basically.
Exactly.
The finale of this ride, and probably the coolest part as a kid that I always remember, where I was like, well, how do they do that? You come toward the end and there's all these ghosts that are like hitchhiking, and then next thing you know, they appear in like the carts with you, but in the mirror. Like you're looking at yourself in a mirror and the ghosts are with you. And I just remember that being so cool. And I think they changed it a little in recent years. So maybe you could tell us about that.
In the 60s, they had the original effects, and they were physical animatronics, but James was asking me, and he wanted to know, because at some point they changed it. The answer you're looking for is in 2011, in the Magic Kingdom in Orlando, they used a new motion capture digital projection technology, so they sort of got away from the original animatronics, and they changed the technology of it. And it now had it would swap heads with guests, and make heads disappear and move around and that kind of stuff. A few years later, in 2015, they updated the effects in Disneyland as well, so it got the same sort of update and makeover. And actually, though, in January 2025, this year, Disneyland did a new projection technology again, so now it's been updated yet again, and the effects look even better now. They're more vivid and there's more going on, and it's just like, it's really impressive now. One big difference between the Florida ride and the California ride is between September and December out in Anaheim, they changed the Haunted Mansion to Nightmare Before Christmas, which is an amazing re-theme where the entire ride is just transformed, and I've been on it and it's incredible. And if you can get the chance to go during that time of the year, definitely do it. One thing I do want to say about it though is they do it from September to December, and I understand them wanting to do it around Christmas time because it's Nightmare Before Christmas, but the Haunted Mansion is like the spooky thing. I feel like they should keep the Haunted Mansion normal during October, because that's like normal horror Haunted Mansion.
Yeah.
I feel like right after Halloween ends, like November 1st, that's when
Yeah.
they should change it.
I forgot about that. I remember hearing about it.
Yeah, one little piece of trivia I wanted to tell you is that, did you know there are real ashes in there sometimes? Because what people do is sometimes people will try to sneak their dead relatives' ashes into the park, and they will bring them to different rides. Now, it doesn't only happen on the Haunted Mansion. Like, this happens all over the park, but and you're definitely not supposed to do it. But sometimes people in their purse or something, they'll sneak in ashes, because you might have... It'd be like me, right? It'd be like, I love the Haunted Mansion, bury me there, right? But people actually do it sometimes, and I actually know some people that have worked on the Haunted Mansion, and I would recommend not doing it, because they just take it and throw it out.
I would think that they even have to just go in there just to do some routine dusting and stuff, like, just to think that there's no way the ashes are going to stay. So
Now, there's another thing. We're not totally done. So when you exit the ride, there's a small cemetery off to the side, which you might pass or like not even notice. But the cemetery is a little pet cemetery, and it has little statues and things. And in the back of the pet cemetery is a statue of Mr. Toad, because Mr. Toad is no longer in the Orlando ride. They took that ride away. So, and because he's an animal that was taken away, they have him as a statue. It's a little tribute for the fact that they took the ride away, which is a damn shame, because it was a great ride, and they replaced it, I think, with Winnie the Pooh.
to sum things up, Haunted Mansion's probably my favorite Disney ride. Always has been. Probably my favorite haunted attraction, I guess, if you want to call it that. But then I also think about Alien Encounter, when that used to exist, and and the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror. But the Monster Madness episode that's going to come up in the this coming October is going to be a little different, because I'm going to talk more about local haunted attractions, not so much theme parks and things like this. Also, the Monster Madness videos will be more like the usual videos where it's just me scripted. But hey, feel free to drop in at some point, and maybe we'll talk a little more.
Okay.